Family First. I'm talking about sibling rivalry. If there's more than one child at your home, it's probably something you're pretty familiar with. Yep. There it is. Just scenes like this play out at your house a lot. If you're like me, a mom of three, sometimes you can just brush it off and say, hey, it's normal. They're not perfect kids. But other times, I think this is just too much. The bickering, the fighting. What can I do? Why are they fighting so much? So here to talk with us about it, back with me once again, family psychotherapist Nero Feliciano. Thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Now, this is something that a lot of families struggle with. People might be watching and saying, yeah, that's me every day, right?
Yes.
This is very normal.
Very normal, and according to 3 major world religions, it's as old as the first family. So if you're struggling with this, it doesn't mean you're a bad parent or you have bad kids, but it is very normal.
Yeah, 100% all right, normal. So
yes.
Sigh of relief there. So let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Why do kids fight? Why the bickering?
Right. There are a couple different reasons why kids fight. I mean, one, it could be searching for attention. So if kids aren't getting that attention one-on-one, they might know that this is one way to attract it, individual attention from the parents, undivided attention, and even though it's negative attention, they gravitate towards it. That's the first one.
And then there was another one you were they might be questioning, do my parents love me as much as the other?
Absolutely. So for kids, they're developing their identity. So this is part of their quest for fairness and justice and a way to validate I am worthy. So they might be asking when they bring a parent in, am I worthy? Can you validate that? And do you love me as much as you do my other sibling?
And what else do parents need to know and keep in mind?
Well, one, what parents can do you mean? Yeah, absolutely. They have to be aware of their own stuff getting into it. Are they showing favoritism in some way? Is there a special connection with one child, maybe because of their own birth order, or maybe one child is easier to parent? You want to create balance in the family. You don't want to overpraise one child. You want to make sure you're affirming all kids equally. That can be hard to do, but something we need to be aware of.
And I know one thing that you mentioned before is to be careful not to label one child. Now, what do you mean about, the labels?
Yes. So we don't do this explicitly by saying, okay, here's the good athlete or the good eater or the pretty one, the good child, or even worse, the bad child.
Right.
But inadvertently, we do this by the conversations we have surrounding one child. And what this does is it creates division and competition. Because say the child whose test scores you're not talking about, or whose academic performance you're not talking about, hears that you are about their sibling, they're thinking, okay, if that's the smart one, then I must not be.
Yeah, it falls on us to sort of rein things in, because I've caught myself before. I've said to my kids, hey, your little sister, she'll go clean her room, she'll brush her teeth. I only have to ask her once.
Exactly.
And that's something that we parents have to just try to stay away from, right?
Well, we all do it, but it's better to just focus on that child and talking to them about how we can improve their behavior rather than comparing them to the other child, because each child has their own strengths and weaknesses, challenges. Don't like to say weaknesses.
Right.
So it's better to address it individually rather than comparatively.
And I have to ask you about the middle child. I mean, each child, you were saying each child is different. They have their strengths. How do parents focus on the middle child? Because we've all heard of, middle child syndrome, and it's something that we parents need to focus on.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to be careful.
Especially a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I have one too. I know you said you did too.
I do.
I'm going to be careful how I say this, because my sister, who's a middle child, is in California and a therapist. She's going to be watching my words. Yes. Middle children have some great strengths. They're great negotiators. They're peacekeepers. But they often lose their identity in the family. They don't have the privileges of the first, and often we tend to focus on the achievements of the first, and the youngest, I say, is like the party of the family.
Right.
So they get away with a lot more, and we're tired by that time to parent them. So the middle is trying to find their place. Individual attention, and that's for all of them, but especially the middle. And to ask the question, like we talked on Valentine's Day, how do you feel loved? What do you enjoy doing with me? And spend that time with them. And the other thing is give them a little bit more time outside of the family with their own friends, because the power dynamic is different. It's more equal. So they tend to develop their own sense of self a little bit more in that setting.
And we were just looking at the last graphic that mentioned special time, like 8 to 15 minutes. And that's something you not just maybe do with the middle child to focus on that one. But with all of them, just kind of like have a little bit of check-in time.
Right. We have 4
It's hard.
kids.
And honestly, it's hard to carve out that time in the middle of the day with gymnastics, baseball, dinner, homework. But it's really critical.
It is, and it doesn't have to be every day.
And it can go a long way.
It can go a long way. 8 to 10 minutes a day, the research shows that kids feel more connected. It can be playing some basketball, sitting down doing a project, or just a conversation where there's no distractions or interruptions or other siblings creeping in.
Yeah.
But schedule special dates. You know, go out for a dinner date, a coffee date with the child, just by themselves, so you have that uninterrupted time. And that doesn't have to happen weekly.
Right.
That can happen monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super helpful, not just me, I think, for our viewers as well. I want to mention, we don't have time to go through it right now, but you wrote an article about how our birth order, where we fall in the family, then shapes how we treat the birth order in our own families. I found it really interesting. You wrote it for Parents Magazine, and I'm going to make sure that is posted to our website and our news app, because it's really gives us some great insight.